Present, so we have a quorum. Proof of notification, Administrator Langrick, I know you sent me a picture of it on the board. Was it sent everywhere?
We're properly posted.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a 7-point agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Brewer,
Bob, I'll second.
second by Frank. Any discussion, additions, corrections to the agenda? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Item number 4, minutes from the April 19, 2021 meeting. If y'all had a chance to look at those, I would entertain a motion to approve those.
I can move. Glassburner.
right.
This is
All right,
Dave.
motion
I'll
by-
second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have the minutes approved. All right, item number 5, discussion with Administrator Langrick on administrative support staff. So I'll pass this off to Administrator Langrick in a second, but so just to remind you, this was the documents that he gave us at our April 9th meeting, right before the meeting, and we, we had asked that we have a little more time to look it over. So I'm hoping that you all had a chance to really look at this, because I think that he has pointed out and very succinctly described the challenges that he faces as administrator, and also, has given us some suggestions as to how we could potentially handle some of this. So with that, I will turn it over to Administrator Langrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the document kind of still stands as is. Of course, there's always movements and developments on it. Kind of where I see the potential for 2 motions for the committee to consider today would be possibly a recommendation of the Memorandum of Understanding for the clerk's position and a finance officer position description to the Finance and Personnel Committee, which we will get to. And then the second possible action that the committee may consider today would be a recommendation of an assistant county administrator position description to the Finance and Personnel Committee today, with possible specification on the capacity and recommendation for funding allocations. To kind of touch on the first bit of this, I was asked through future agenda item requests to bring forward a possible or proposed position description on an assistant to the county administrator position. You'll see underneath your documents, Bob, if you're online, it'll be document 05E is taken off the internet or found in your folder, and is what is as displayed here on the screen for those that have viewing capability. This is the position description that captures proposed duties of an assistant to the county administrator, filling in on such confidential tasks as, such matters as confidential assistant on matters that are pertain to personnel, attending to meetings at the request of the administrator, as often I am in positions where I'm double on meetings that are in 2 different spots at the same time, or perhaps are remote at the same time, and trying to listen into 2 is challenging, or sometimes 3. Makes recommendations in preparation of departmental and regulations and policies, so another person to be able to help in the production and actual working through on policy amendments, updates, and research. Explains policies, procedures, and such to departments, to committee members and boards, so a person that can help communicate the intentions and work on the problems. Perform its administrative duties as related in the preparation of reports, working on different studies, kind of picking up on project management essentially, composes, edits, transcribes, etc. Paper productions in regards to the intricacies of the position, as well as producing PowerPoints for presentations. Performs clerical duties, kind of standard for office. We also on here acts as liaison to and for the county administrator in dealing with department employees, governments. So it's somebody to kind of act as a bridge piece in covering our many bases. Coordinates requests for sealed bids, performing, assisting with placing advertisements. So this comes into place when we're putting out preparations and specification designs. A lot of these pieces right here are kind of being handled kind of in part through MIS with some of our bids on our projects that are coming back in regards to a lot of our work right now through recruitment, through recruiting a replacement deputy clerk, accounts payable clerk, and a corporation counsel. I'm relying on Angie Risner, business manager over at Health and Human Services, who's helping kind of fill that void right now. Analyzes and reviews procedures for workflow, makes recommendations to improve efficiency. Another eyes on, again, on trying to help find more efficient ways to do business. Miscellaneous administrative tasks, policy analysis, helps with preparation on evaluation for department heads, which is a project that is underway, of which I'm embarrassingly falling behind on. Assists in the annual budget process, processes purchase orders, etc. For a kind of a department type level. Interacts with other governmental and private agencies when we're trying to reach out and coordinate the many meetings, whether it's internal with departments or with supervisors or with our partners. Trying to coordinate meetings and find times that work for everybody is it can be very time intensive. Acts as a record retention representative for the department as we deal with a lot of different records and making sure that they're maintained for future reference and also for open records requests. Maintains office and signs documents in the absence of the administrator, and many other duties that are not restricted to this position description. So a lot of this material is taken from a Calumet County assistant to the county administrator document, and that comes from Todd, who we talked to several meetings ago. Another document that I'd like you to take a look at.
Mr. Langert, can I interrupt? Mr. Langert, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for 1 second? So I just, on this, the topic of assistant to county administrator, I just wanted to let you all know that Supervisor Murphy Lopez had a chance to speak with our highway commissioner about one of the positions at the highway shop. And unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to catch up with Roger, but what Mr. Murphy Lopez relayed to me was that there is the potential that he would be willing, that he is willing to cut the, I don't know if it's the clerk, I believe it's the clerk position to half-time, and that would actually free up a half-time position. So we would allocate a half-time position to the highway department, and we could allocate at this point at least a half-time position to the county administrator. So I think that that is something I may recommend we make a motion on today. Of course, I do want to actually speak with Roger and make sure that this is still something that he is comfortable with, which it's my understanding that he is. So I just wanted to put that out there while we're talking about the assistant to the county administrator, that we have potentially found at least a half-time position that we could get from another department. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Langrick.
No, that's quite all right, Madam Chair. If there's, do you want to pause here before we kind of go into the, before we kind of change pace now and talk about? Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that some more if the committee members would like to talk about that some more. I mean, I think in my mind, we would not necessarily split that position as in the same person would work in both places. It may be that we offer a half-time position at highway and a half-time position for the county administrator, giving the county administrator the ability to hire who he sees fit for his position. Not that that person couldn't apply and, to make a full-time position. And actually, I should clarify, that position is, I believe, a 35-hour per week position. So it's not quite, splitting it in half would not make it 20 hours per week. So we may want to indicate that it's 20 hours per week or whatever we want to do. So I would be interested in hearing the reaction from the rest of the committee at this point.
This is Bob. I think it's a good stepping point. I'd like to see a memorandum between the two agencies so we have a clear understanding of what those hours are. If that individual is already doing 35 now, another 5 hours isn't part-time, isn't half-time. So I'd like to actually see that drawn up between the highway and I guess the administrator's office, or is that addressed between the highway and this committee?
Right, well, to clarify, what I'm suggesting is that the position highway be cut to half-time, and then a new position be allocated to the county administrator that is half-time. And so it's not necessarily the same person working in both departments. It would give them the opportunity to each have who they want in their department. So there wouldn't, at that point, unless they decided to share, there wouldn't be no need for a memorandum of understanding.
Thank you for the clarification. Now I'm understanding better what you mean. Yeah, I think it's a good starting point. Good place to start.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
I wouldn't unmute. Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was recognized first. I see that the pay grade for this position is at grade H. Is that the pay grade for the other position we're discussing too?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know, Mr. Langrick, if you have the ability to look at that while we're talking here.
I do. Stand by. I can find it.
Okay.
That was one question I had. The other question I had, if we split this into two part-time positions, is there a potential cost saving in, because it's two part-time positions, there not being fringe benefits involved?
I believe that as long as they are half-time or more, they qualify for full fringe. Is that not correct?
Madam Chair, this is Administrator Langrick. Our fringe benefits are based on multiple definitions of what part-time is. So
Okay.
WRS kicks in at a different level versus health insurance versus some of the other fringe benefits. So it's, if it's two positions roughly under, they're both underneath 17.5, then I believe most of the benefits they would not be eligible for. But then part of that also includes when they might have first been employed by a WRS employer, as there's two different formulas of who's entitled to Wisconsin retirement based on a year where you would have either or first started again working for a WRS employer. So it's a little bit of a matrix on figuring that out.
Okay, so we don't know. There's potentially some savings, but we don't know.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to have a little discussion before we discuss the assistant position in its entirety, how we would address that or anything. I would like to discuss that document a little bit more, because if I'm reading this correctly, adding an administrative support position would be solution number 2 on the list that Mr. Langrick has proposed. And I would like to discuss as a group a little bit more the solution number 1 and his thoughts behind it and some of his proposals before we decide or necessarily make a motion or even discuss some of these possibilities.
So just to clarify, I think that the administrative assistant is a necessity no matter what we do. At the bare minimum, the assistant needs to be accomplished. Whether we can finagle a finance director or an HR director, I think is I know I realize he listed it as step 2. I think that, well, I guess unless what you're saying is if it's more important to have a finance director, then we would use the money that's potentially from this position to pay for a finance director. Is that what you're getting at?
Correct. And some discussion
okay.
as to whether that would actually be listed right now as a finance director position. Is there a different way that we could describe this position that gives more flexibility, where we could possibly, I just think there's some discussion to be had there.
Okay, and so the other piece, just to make things even more complicated, is that I believe Administrator Langrick hinted at that in his mind, some of the financial pieces are going to be picked up by the clerk with the memorandum of understanding with the money that's in there for the administrative coordinator duties that the previous clerk had. So I guess it's up to the committee, but you're right. This is all tied together, and maybe we don't want to jump right into giving him an assistant right at this second week, but let's keep that in mind as far as that is a potential source of income to use. And so Administrator Langer, why don't you go ahead and talk us through the financial director and HR positions that you were looking at.
Sure. And I think in a long term, how far out long term is that eventually Richland County should be in a position where they do have a finance director and has an HR director. To get there, of course, it's going to take steps, and it's going to take funding and reallocation of priorities. As a stepping stone, potentially, to get there, a action that was taken place at the last county board meeting, your last county board meeting, underneath resolution number 2157, we talked about with the appointment of the new clerk Kalish, who was appointed, coming in, that there was additional funds that were put into the county clerk salary with historic expectations of that position performing the administrator coordinator position. So part of that resolution also called for a memorandum of understanding, essentially kind of requesting requesting that the clerk recognize those additional compensations, and that additional extra duties beyond statutory requirements would be kind of expected in exchange for those additional compensation. So we have a proposed drafted memorandum of understanding that has been reviewed by Clerk Kalish. By resolution, it's an item that is to go through finance and personnel prior to going back to the county board for approval and ratification. The memorandum of understanding kind of defines the scope and terms. Again, it talks on the resolution 2157, which was adopted at the last meeting. And kind of to iterate, it states that the additional compensations that are in place for this current term of 21-24 term, which is kind of averages out to about $15,000, is there with expectations that there are some additional duties. The duties, authorities, and goals that we would potentially establish with this memorandum would be duties, responsibilities, and authorities defined by the financial officer job description, finance officer job description, which is attached to which we'll get to. It also has expectations of assist with strategic goals of resolution 21-107. And that 21-107 was a resolution that we put in place for our administrator to accomplish the strategic goal. There was 12 different goals. 2 of those goals, which may fit with the county clerk, include make resolutions and ordinances available and organized on the internet. Clerk Kalish has that high on his priority list of trying to establish a book of ordinances to capture all of our many different both land ordinances and non-land ordinances, to make that a collection of probably on an internet type of a format that is searchable and is all kind of pieced together versus having to go through years and years of volumes of books to try to find ordinances. The second strategic goal also then would be develop finance and purchasing policy, as this is also one of our strategic goals. And then kind of the third piece of it is to begin preliminary assessment and planning for possible next generation finance and payroll systems. Next meeting, I will likely be going to finance and personnel and requesting that the county invest in another AS400 system box with our AS400 software for finance and for payroll, with the mindset that that is going to be our solution for potentially the next 5 years, possibly to 10 years, but to begin our preliminary assessments on understanding our needs and having a plan and putting that into action, because that is probably fair to say that's at least if you're doing it fast, you can do it in 3 years. If you're doing it more slow and methodical, it's probably a 5-year process. With that then is also legal recognition that this memorandum of understanding is agreement containing additional duties, responsibilities, and authorities, which may not be statutory by Wisconsin State Statute 5923-2C, which defines the clerk's duties. These extensions of duties beyond statutory are performed at the discretion of Clerk Kalish and with his consent. If performance concerns arise as related to these extra duties, which extend beyond the scope of Wisconsin State Statute 59 again, it is recognized that they may not constitute for cause as defined through Wisconsin State Statute 17001 and 17091. So essentially saying that if push comes to shove on these types of things, the clerk would be standing on statutes that say that they are not mandated by the state to be part of his performance, If there is concerns on performance of those, that the county board wanted to move for a four-cause vote for separate or for ending the clerk's term, it could very likely be determined that those four-cause concerns on extended duties beyond the statute would not be warranted, if that all makes sense. So that would be the memorandum of understanding. The proposed finance officer position description is drafted to look like this. It is kind of viewed as an additional hat worn by an elected official. It would report essentially kind of to the directly to the county board, finance and personnel committee as kind of the coordinating committee by structure. The department would be the clerk administrator department. Pay grade is that which is established by salary. It amounts to about $15,000 extra as seen right now above the other elected official positions. Purpose of the position: the finance officer is responsible for performing technical work with accounting services in accordance with the Wisconsin State Statute 5923. This position helps provide guidance, direction, and support to the administrator, treasurer, accounting supervisor, and county board regarding the financial management practices of the county. This position assists with structuring financial programs, budgets, and establishing and reporting mechanisms to comply with funding source regulations. The finance officer identifies potential problems, formulates solutions, and makes recommendations to the county administrator and county board regarding county finances. The essential duties and responsibilities are predominantly taken from two different kind of finance officer and controller position descriptions, one of them being the Iowa County Finance Director that was also in your packet. The language is kind of toned down from a director being directly charged over other employees to be an assistant and a reviewer kind of language. But it encompasses, again, working in regards to financial policy, procedures, reporting methods, accounting methods, and reconciliations. Reviews and evaluates general ledger configuration, accounts receivable practices, distributions, and also is helping us with our compliance with General Accounting Standards Board, or GATSB. And then we have different auditing types of languages in here. Again, closing book of accounts, reconciliations, assisting with the committees and boards in preparing statistical data, another resource for the board and for committees to be able to gain financial information, as well as assisting in the developing of bonding projects. Responsible to plan, organize, and assist the county administrator in preparation of adopting a budget. So that one's a little bit teethier, with a direct responsibility of kind of putting together a plan and working with the administrator on the process and the procedure for putting together a budget. Confer with the administrator, and I've got in here a language would have to be changed, but conferring essentially on impacts from wage increases and labor negotiations, auditing grants and helping us track our grants, conducting financial training of county staff on budgeting, purchasing, accounting, and reporting procedures and internal controls. So being able to help fill in on putting together different training programs for internally, as well as potentially helping with our orientations with county board members on understanding how our system is kind of set up and understanding what some of the reports mean. Participates in employee interviews, trains new employees, may require to be performing accounting supervisor, payroll benefit specialist, and accounts payable duties. So that is the second piece here that's brought to the table. And again, it's an awful lot. Most of these things you would see in a finance director position, full-time salaried, 40-hour plus. This is kind of put into a part-time hat that is envisioned to be put on your elected or appointed elected position of a county clerk, and kind of comes with a time limit on ending with the 2024 term. Madam Chair.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you created this document in conjunction with Clerk Kalish? And he is agreeable to all of these, to what this says and what the memorandum of understanding says?
Yes, Clerk Kalish has reviewed these and he is agreeable to do these. Again, though, I think it's important to recognize, like I kind of said at the end, that this is in other departments, other organizations, this would be 40 hours plus of work. This is kind of seen as an additional hat on the county clerk position of a $15,000 wage increase of what the future salary is going to be, and also kind of comes with recognition that if we're not keeping up on these duties, it's not really something that necessarily is. It's going to be a challenge to kind of have any type of retribution on not keeping up with these, because these are added on duties, and that the overall responsibility of these things being executed still kind of falls on myself as the county administrator.
Correct. Yeah,
So-
I think that's good to have
so-
that actually written out.
Yep.
Okay, well, I mean, my reaction to this, so I'll start, is this does seem like a very good short-term solution. I think that we need to be very respectful and of Clerk Kalish's time, and understanding that he's also learning all of his clerk duties as well. But I'm very pleased to see that he is willing to work with the county in taking on some additional duties for that additional money that's left from the administrative coordinator position. I guess in my mind, the only other thing that I would like is I would like some sort of language that talks about that we will reassess the situation in 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever, to make sure that it's still everyone is still agreeable and that it's still working, would be my only other suggestion for that. And just one other thing, Administrator Langrick, so are you, in your mind, is this this position is a short-term solution to not hiring a new financial director, but actually giving us time to transition and utilizing that the additional funds in the clerk's salary?
Yes, I would say that you have a county clerk that's willing to kind of take on above what would be required by statute. By having this position description with defining what the expectations are and having him fill that capacity, it gives us, we're going to be able to evaluate to see how much of it can really fit there. Whether or not it all fits there and we still have problems is probably going to be a thing we continue to kind of fight with. But at least it kind of defines what it is for your elected official. If we get to a point where we want to move those duties, then we have something to kind of point at to move the duties versus in the transition kind of from the clerk to the county administrator, where we just kind of said, financial duties move. This kind of has a little bit more expectation of kind of what goes along with those.
Okay. I mean, and in theory, if this arrangement works and the clerk really enjoys doing both clerk duties and these financial duties, this is something we could decide to continue past 2024, and we would add additional salary then to the clerk's salary at that point, if this was something that worked.
You can, I guess, as a note moving forward, though, you would probably still want to move forward with keeping the clerk's salary reduction as you wanted, and having an additional, create an additional, an added on duty called a finance officer, and then tagging the clerk with those.
Yeah, my understanding from the Wisconsin Counties Association is that they recommend anytime you add another responsibility to an elected officials that you keep the two items separate, including separate salary, so yeah, that would make sense. But anyway, that's just something we can look at in the future. Other committee members' thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this. It would seem that Victor, in his previous role, was not only doing the clerking and the coordinating, but he was also doing financial director job. Is that a wrong interpretation?
Madam Chair, I guess I would say that there were probably a lot of expectations that were out there. How much Clerk Vlasic was actually able to fit in and to do, I don't know all those. I think some of the things that you'd find on the list here are things that we've kind of just been doing without, or they've been kind of picked up by whoever can kind of make it happen, if you will.
Right, and I think that Derek, before he left, was doing a lot of these things, of course.
Yes, yep.
So it's, I'm not gonna, and I use this as a qualified word, easy for him to step into this role.
Highly qualified, easy. I think he was familiar with a lot of these things, but there's a
Right.
there's a lot of pieces, a lot of wheels turning right now.
I think my impression of this is that it satisfies a short-term need, but it has long-term ramifications. And um, I would see this as being something that at the end of the normal, the clerk tenure that Derek is doing the rest of the term, at the end of that term, it would have to be revisited and probably salary added then to the basic clerk duty with a clear delineation of duties at that point.
Mr. Langrick, do you foresee this as a temporary solution, but we will still have many conversations and during our budgeting process about how we could come up with a long-term, actually establishing a financial director position? Is that kind of where you see this going?
That's my vision of it, is that, this kind of is going to start kind of defining the role of what we'd call a finance officer now, of what potentially becomes a finance director for Richland County in the future. But when and how that comes, and when when it starts fitting into budget, if it's phased in, how that all works, I don't know. With having a new clerk in, with having a vacant accounts payable position that we're looking to fill, with having a new accounting supervisor, with having myself having been over here for only about 6 months now, we're still getting a feel for it. The one thing is for certain, though, is that we have quite a lot to do, and we're stretched thin and keeping up with all of it. But as you've heard from your other departments, that's kind of a trend.
So in previous conversations I've had with you, you've always, you've indicated that, in your mind, it's more helpful to you to have someone helping with financial duties than an administrative assistant. So now that we're filling some of the financial burden with the clerk Kalish, are you back to needing or thinking that the next priority would be an administrative assistant for you?
As we talked about today, I think it's probably a lot more digestible to try to incorporate a half-time administrator assistant than it is to go the other way of a full-time finance director.
So, okay. Does any other committee members have comments?
Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
this is Bob. Go ahead.
Why don't we go, Mr. Turk, why don't you go first, and then we'll get to you, Mr. Frey.
Okay, I was just going to say I agree with the assessment that this is a transition kind of thing, and as I think what this committee was charged with, I don't know that we've been given a charge long enough to get us through to the long-term vision, but I think this fits well within our charge to get us to steps in the direction.
Okay. Supervisor Frey?
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with Supervisor Turk on that. A couple of questions I have there's what I see as a great opportunity. The entire area has been has an opportunity to refresh. I'm curious a bit about the accounts payable supervisor position. Who, depending upon who comes in there, is that a possibility of also shared resources between the clerk and the county administrator? And what are the costs by adding that half-time person? They're at 35 hours. If we have 2 half-time positions, are we really only looking at an extra true value of 5 hours and some WRS time? And is that really what we're looking at for the difference?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
go ahead,
Madam Chair. This is Administrator Langrick. I apologize, Madam Chair. Am I okay to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. The first part of that, Supervisor Frank, is that in our office here, we're kind of very integrated. So with having the deputy clerk accounts payable position vacant, when that position gets filled, I see our employees, myself included, Clerk Kalish included, we're kind of operating kind of as one office versus two offices. I intend to have our accounting supervisor, Josh Bell, also trained through the voting commission, so that he's able to handle votes at elections and to be able to help on those things, as well as understanding the different licensings eventually and all those kinds of things to help cover on the basic clerk functions and folks that are coming through here. Likewise with Clerk Kalish's position, his deputy position is actually accounts payable, which kind of fits more in a finance house. So our offices are going to be very interlinked. We've had initial discussions on trying to sort out how to put together combined office budgets to try to accommodate. Obviously, we'll be using the same printers. We have the same mailing type of expectations with the office and some of the other functions. So it's going to end up being probably a clerk/administrator office for the foreseeable future. The second part of that is then with kind of going back to a question previously, is the highway clerk position is at a step F. The position recommendation that we had come forward today for an assistant is at a step, or I'm sorry, not step, but a grade F. The assistant administrator position was evaluated through Carlson Detman as a grade H, which is kind of on level with our payroll and benefits specialist position. Madam Chair.
So I'm sorry, can you just tell us what is the pay differential between an F and an H?
Yes, I can. At a step 2 for grade F is at 1731, and at an H is a 2068. So we're looking at about a $3.30 an hour increase.
Okay, so we would have to come up with a little bit of funding to create a 20-hour per week grade H position in your office. We'd have to come up with, I mean, I guess we can run the numbers and figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if a reduction in benefits, if the
That
current
would
highway
make it,
clerk is, I'm not sure. I'd have to research.
okay.
So
Okay,
again, this is Bob. Can I have a moment?
yep, go ahead.
So the highway commission, the highway department is saying they're going to drop from a 35-hour to a 20-hour halftime, or they're going to, and then we would have that difference to add a separate halftime quarter. They're actually going to drop hours for an employee. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is what I'm understanding from them as well, yes.
Okay. So there's some cost savings there. I'm all right. That's.
And again, I should apologize. I just did not get a chance to talk to the highway commissioner as I should have before this meeting. So all of this, will be confirmed. And I think what we can do today is we can instruct the administrator to follow up and get it all worked out.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I hear Mr. Turk's point that we are a transition committee and we're tasked with essentially the transition process. But I do have a concern just that, I think we need to be looking forward to the long-term solutions here. And I'm a little concerned that if we have a halftime assistant, at least based on what we have right now as the position description, and I guess this would be a question for Administrator Langrick, but I'm concerned that we wind up with a position where we may not be able to utilize it effectively when we're talking a 20-hour per week with the description that we have and just being able to get that person acclimated and with the requirements for that position. I think it's a high school diploma and, you know, not as stringent of requirements as far as work experience, etc. My concern is that we would wind up with a position where it may not be as effective in helping with some of the efficiencies that we're hoping to get for this office. And I know the question or the problem lies is, where are we going to get the funding for another position? I guess another question for Mr. Langrick would be, if we were to move towards looking at a long-term solution, I think the idea is that we would be utilizing or finding those efficiencies and things that would wind up helping pay for that position in itself. In other words, what are areas that you see right now in our county that you're not able to get to, that if we were able to have that sort of position could wind up funding for itself? And I realize that this is kind of a stopgap, and so maybe this is not the right discussion to be having. I just don't know if we want a 20-hour per week assistant when maybe what we're looking for is something that would have a bit more flexibility. In other words, as we get a better feel for how is this unit going to work together, where are the needs, a person with enough background and training that could be maybe utilized more efficiently. I don't know if that made sense.
Understand where you're getting at. So I haven't given up hope that in our budget process, we may be able to determine there's another half-time position somewhere in the county that we could then make a whole position for the administrator. I will tell you that Supervisor Murphy Lopez also called a whole bunch of Register of Deeds offices and was able to find out that most Register of Deeds offices, I think all but one in the state, have full-time Register of Deeds, deputy Register of Deeds. So that seemed less like a place where we should necessarily be looking to find a half-time position. So, you know, in my mind, I guess the halftime, I was thinking that the halftime is a place to start. We can at least get someone in, get them going, with the idea that it potentially could turn into a full-time position if we can find the funding during the budget process.
Well, if that's your thought, then I'm wondering if we want to limit, I guess maybe that's the wrong way to say it. I'm wondering if we want to expand then what we're looking for in that position, because currently, you know, it's only requiring a high school diploma. Not that that couldn't be effective, but it would maybe have a little bit less flexibility.
Are you saying that you foresee this assistant position being able to take on more high-level responsibility, like financial or HR kind of responsibilities, or what
I
are
guess
you
that
kind
would be my question. Like, should this be something more like operations manager, something that would provide a bit more flexibility in being able
Right.
to?
I mean, yeah, I think the only downside to that would be that you want to make sure that that person is also willing to do some of the tedious tasks that are sucking up so much of our administrators' time. You know, you don't want to make the
Correct.
title seem like there's so much that they're at a high level that they shouldn't have to write up minutes from something, or like, I mean, all of the things that our administrator is doing now that he doesn't have time to do.
I think that most position descriptions do include something along that lines, or we certainly should include something along that lines. I mean, if our administrator can be doing that right now, then certainly his assistant or vice administrator or operations manager should not be above that. And I think just including that in the language could potentially help mitigate.
Yeah, I know. I think that definitely has some merits. Mr. Langrick, do you have thoughts on that?
Again, if it's something that we incorporate now or we see how things go and tease it out in the future, I don't know what the best approach is, having not quite been down this exact road before. I do have consideration when we're talking about if the conversation goes towards more capabilities. Yes, I would certainly love to have more help. A lot of the things that, you know, I don't know where necessarily a return on investment on how because I visualize like from an administrative perspective, like your return on investment is maybe through some types of revenues, if you can get to the point of having more inflows from grants. Other efficiencies are, you can gain return on investment if you can displace functions off of departments and then try to centralize and to try to expedite things centrally. Then maybe you can do reductions on services at a department level, which leads to a savings. Unfortunately, I kind of feel right now that we're kind of behind. So a lot of the things that this position is going to help kind of keep up with is just simply things that we're not getting done right now. So I don't know to say that there's going to be a savings on a return on investment and reduction. And the only way I kind of see it is like what would happen potentially with an exchange with the highway department. Another consideration that I think needs to be recognized too when we talk about increasing our staffing is conversations with finance and personnel as we're moving in the directions of doing wage increases going into the next year, which equates to increased operational expenses. Our last conversation with finance and personnel was a realization that we have about $2 million of requests, $2.5 million of requests for capital improvements, with only right now potentially $1 million bucket, depending on how the American Recovery Plan kind of works out to try to fill that. So even like with our wage increases, if we go with an option of say $200,000, well, that's 2.5 to possibly 3 positions that I don't know where they fit in the county to try to stay underneath the ceilings that we have for levy limits. So, I certainly would love the extra help. I think the county would benefit from it, but then it comes back around to the questions on where can we cut from a department level, from a service level, and do less of. And I don't know if I answered the question or just danced around it, but that's what my thoughts are.
Thank you. No, I thought you actually did a good job. Again, Supervisor Glassman, I think that we need to keep this in mind, that this is a very fluid process and that we are transitioning. And so I think the most important thing that we can be clear about is that all of these things can be changed later. We can add duties and give them a higher pay grade, as we transition through this too. So yeah, it doesn't mean, it means that you may not hire I get what you're saying, in that if you have a different job description with higher requirements, then you're going to get different people applying for the job. But at this point, with kind of our current circumstances, I don't think it would be a waste of money. I don't think we would ever regret bringing an administrator assistant in. Because I'm always thinking of, I hate to do something temporary but you end up wasting your time and money on. I mean, obviously that's something we want to avoid. But I don't see that would happen in this position.
Chair, this is Bob again.
Yes, go ahead.
So I guess I'm kind of seeing the chicken and the egg routine here. If we don't get some help in the administrative office, then we can't find where the benefits are going to be. And if we can't find where the benefits are be, then we can't get the administrative assistant to help, or the position to help out, and we're just running in the circles. So my encouragement at this point is, if we wait on this for a full time, it's going to be at least next year. And I really don't see how the administrative position, with everything going on, the new staff in there, the new payroll person, or I'm sorry, accounts payable coming in, I don't see where a half-time position is going to hurt. I think it's a good start, and they're still going to have to train that person. So that is another piece in this puzzle that we are laying on Administrator Langrick. So I would encourage sooner than later that we pursue into this part-time position. I really appreciate Supervisor Glassbrenner's comments on that, about where it goes. This may be a 6-month position that only lasts to the end of the year until we get a full-time, and then the person may not qualify. We need to get some help in the administration office. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
This is a classic case of you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
I can't put words in Administrator Langrick's mouth, but I'll try. Every day he's running into new and unforeseen examples of things that maybe had been done and maybe they were almost done automatically by Vic, or maybe they weren't being done, but they should have been done. And every day he's adding to his list of things that he needs to address. And if I were him right now, I'd be feeling a little, not panicked, because Clint never gets panicked, but I would be feeling a little maybe nervous that some of these things have to be started. And if we don't start now, then a year from now, 2 years from now, it's even going to be more of a problem. So I support getting the help that we need and getting it as soon as we can. If it's part-time, half-time, so be it. I thought we were looking at other positions in the probate office, for instance. Maybe I was wrong there. I thought I read that.
So the probate department, they didn't have a deputy, and they just got a deputy that the clerk of courts gave up one of their deputies to give them a deputy. So I'm not sure at this point that it makes sense to mess around with that office.
Oh, that's your committee. You're just saying that because that's your committee.
Well, no, I mean, she got that deputy from the clerk of court, and the clerk of court cut it.
I'm
So,
tongue in cheeky, and I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we can certainly look at it again. We can look at everything. I think everything is worth looking at. I do think there's potential for, I mean, there's other departments, land conservation, there's potentially a half-time position we could get out of land conservation, because we've talked about cutting the farmland preservation position in that department. So there are other places. So what I'd like to do today, because I feel like we need to do something. So what I'd like to do today is, and maybe I'll make this into a motion, is I would make the motion that we instruct the county administrator to, well, no, I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say that my motion would be that we allocate a 20-hour-a-week position at highway, so reducing that position from 35 to 20, and we allocate a 20-hour-per-week position to the county administrator. And then we'll be sending this on to finance, and it will be finance's job and our job to figure out what the actual monetary difference is for that position we're creating in the administrator's office. I don't think it's going to be a lot of money, so I think we should be able to come up with $15,000 or $10,000 if that's what the difference is. So should I restate that?
No, I'll second your motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Discussion.
I just want to make it clear that I was not anti this position, and I hope I didn't come across that way. I just was concerned that I didn't want us to limit
Right.
Mr. Langrick in that. So I apologize if that took us off course, but thanks for your guys' input. That was great.
Actually, I don't think you took us off course. I think those are all really valid points that we need to talk about and we need to be thinking about. Even if we make this decision, it doesn't mean that this is a final decision. This is the first step, and that, and you get the right person in this position, and this position could turn into a position with a lot more responsibility as well. A lot of times it depends on the position, or the person in the position. So, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that motion?
Yeah, this is Bob. So I'm concerned with the motion language, that we're really not sure what the highway department means by this, and we're kind of setting that we're taking hours away. I don't know that that's what they mean, because I haven't heard or seen anything official from them. Are we shoving something down their throat by saying we're going to cut them from whoever their person is from 34 to 20? Is that really their vision? I'm just concerned.
Right. So that was my understanding from my conversation with Supervisor Murphy Lopez. What I think we should do is we'll send this out of our committee, but before it gets to finance, we'll make sure all of those questions are answered. And if there's any changes, they can also be made at the finance committee, would be my suggestion.
Okay. I guess then I would add to the amendment that it will be discussed with the highway department and we get some type of understanding or written agreement or memorandum from them, so we are sure. I'm not doubting you. I'm just trying to make sure that all the directors and people know what's going on, and we're not
Right.
like we're cutting them out.
Right. So do you want me to add that to mine, or are you amending the motion?
It'd be a whole lot easier if you just added it to yours.
Can I do that? I think I can. Can I do that?
We have to redo a second on it then, but
Yeah. So I will clarify my motion to state that Administrator Langrick or I will communicate with the highway commissioner and verify their agreement to this. Although keep in mind that as a county board, by statute, we do have the authority to determine how many positions are allocated to each department. Although
totally
I agree with you. Even though we have the authority, that doesn't mean we shouldn't involve them in the process.
Your second
Correct.
agrees with your amended, whatever you're doing there in your motion.
All right. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, if I can just read the motion back to make sure I'm tracking on it before we vote.
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
This will be motion Luck, seconded by Brewer, to recommend allocation of a 20-hour assistant administrator position to the county administrator, with funding gained by reduction in the highway clerk position to half-time, pending agreeableness with the highway commissioner.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Administrator Langrick, do you want a motion from us forwarding that memorandum of understanding to finance, or is that automatically going to finance?
By resolution, it's to be reviewed by finance and personnel. If you wanted to give a recommendation on it to kind of show that in your transition talks that it's been blessed off and you think it's a good idea, that may help.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I would make that motion. This is Bob. I would make that motion that it get moved on up the chain.
All right, so I have a motion by.
I can second. I do have a question.
Yeah.
On that, is the job description per se going along with it, the 5G?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
I know you mentioned, Mr. Langrick, there was a couple of language things in there that wouldn't pertain. I think it referenced an employee relations department, and it also references. This is just kind of a clarification question. On the last part of its duties, it says performs other necessary duties as required to include assisting with election functions as directed. Is that something we just want as in general in this position, or is that not needed to be in there since we're talking about it being a county clerk who's doing this?
Yeah, you could probably cut it out. I guess I may have had it in there just with the mindset that if the hat gets moved to some other type of a position, that if it's still in the realm of a clerk administrator position, that might get tagged on, but that can be cut out as well. So I can make the amendments to the draft.
I just wasn't sure what you intended by that.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on sending the memorandum of understanding on to finance? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, Administrator Langrick, was there anything else we needed to discuss today on this topic?
I don't believe so, Madam Chair. I'd be looking for future agenda items.
Okay,
Yes,
so
and Madam Chair, I have future agenda items.
okay, so I just want to remind everyone, according to our resolution, this committee is disbanded on June 1st. So one of the things we might want to discuss is whether we want to ask for another extension or how we're feeling about what's left. So why don't you go ahead with your future agenda item and then we'll talk about that.
Well, one of the things that we need to address is the floor space in the current clerk and administrator office. So
Oh,
I don't know which guy has moved into Vic's office. Probably Derek, I would guess. But it seems to me it'd be more appropriate that Clint assume that office, but maybe we need to reconfigure that whole space and look at making the appropriate changes. And that we should take this up as an agenda item.
okay, yep, because we were tasked with office space allocation as a part of this committee. So I will add that to the next agenda. Are there other items that anyone else? One thing I will mention is it turns out that I did not have the most recent version of the employee handbook when we made our changes. So there is a potential, once I get the copy of the newest one, I will look at what our changes were and what was already in there. We may have to relook at it one more time. So that would be a potential future agenda item as well.
I would also make the recommendation that we request to extend this group's work. I think there's still more things. There's a lot of things to be done, and I think it's been very helpful to finance and personnel to have these things prepped ahead of time. So I think adding another 3 months onto this would be a reasonable direction.
Okay, so that would be another future one. Actually, we would have to take that up at the at the May meeting.
Yep.
Is that possible, Mr. Langer, to take it up at the May meeting?
What can be just added to that agenda, can it?
I think so. Yeah, we're still plenty ahead of time.
Yeah.
Are you talking the county board meeting? Yes. We'll add
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
It's without it coming through a committee to do a resolution, then we have to do, there's some language on I think last time we did it, it was through this body. We took it, I believe, through rules and resolutions because it impacted kind of type of a structure type of a thing, and we brought it there. And we still have language that says actions should be brought forward by resolutions, and resolutions should be recommended by committees, with the exception, and I'd have to pull up the exception language. I think it requires some voting and some other types of things, but we can take a look at it. Another option is we could potentially.
Sorry.
They do, but not until a couple weeks from now.
Could potentially, if
Before
there's
county board?
availability.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Langrick. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say, there's a potential to have a finance and personnel at, say, 6:30 prior to county board, perhaps, just to make recommendation and present or recommend a resolution to the county board. We can have it prepared and agended, and just knowing that we're going to have a meeting prior to county board to affirm it.
So correct me if I'm wrong. We can't take action on this in this meeting though, because it's not on our agenda.
We cannot, but we can adjourn to a time and place right before the next county board meeting, and we can have everything kind of prepped and in the chute for action right prior to the county board.
Okay. So, well, let's look at our calendars to see what date we want to adjourn to next. So today is the 7th. Do we want to try to meet? I mean, we could put, what does everyone's schedule look like on the 17th? That's a Monday. And that would get us before the county board. And then if finance meets before the county board meeting.
I'd have to look back through. I don't know if we'd necessarily have to have finance and personnel make a blessing on it. Let me maybe find that out.
Or is it rules? Or is it just rules that has to?
Rules.
It's rules that made the committee up, isn't it? I don't know. I get so confused.
The rules kind of handles our committee structure document. This wasn't added to committee structure document. It was just added as a resolution. Since you're
Right.
established as a committee, though, I mean, I think you would have the ability to take a resolution directly to your.
Well,
To the
we already
county
got
board.
extended once. How did that happen?
Right, yeah, I can't remember how we got extended the last time. I just looked at the resolution.
Have to look back at it.
Madam Chair, I would think as a committee, a standing committee, that we have the power to forward a resolution.
We
Our
go directly to the board
extension.
instead of it going through.
Well, I don't see why not, but
Here, I'm
I
gonna
don't know,
if I
David,
This is Bob.
I'll defer to David on this.
I think
So
we
we are an
probably could.
official committee, we're not a subcommittee? Sorry.
I think we're a temporary committee established by resolution. I know we didn't add it into this committee structure document, so there might not be a need to really take it to the rules committee, because rules committee is specific to the structure document.
So
I don't think anybody's gonna call us out on it. So if we want to just throw together a administrator transition committee prior to the county board meeting, and we can draft up a resolution that says resolution recommending that you extend this body and amend the previous resolution, we can try to put that together and then have it available on the same night, and then we can go into county board meeting with it properly agended and a resolution to present for committee adoption.
Mr. Langrick, so I just looked at the last time that when we extended the deadline, but also added 2 members, and that did go through rules, just FYI.
But that's also adding 2 members.
It was adding 2 members, yep. We did that the same
Which
night. We
changes-
added members.
Yeah, that changes the structure of the committee then, though. That's why you'd have to go through that, in my opinion.
I mean, I'm fine with sending it directly to the board as long as, I mean, can the chair override that? As long as the chair says it can go, can it go?
The chair says it can go.
There's a provision in the rules that gives specific processes for something that doesn't come out of a committee. Administrator Langrick was correct on that.
Okay. But it's,
Because
but
we've
if
had
it
it
comes out
happen.
of our committee, that's still a committee, right? So,
I believe so.
yeah, so as long as we meet and approve it and send it, then it should be okay to do that. So the next time we want to meet is just right before the county board meeting. Is that what I'm understanding from everyone?
Yes.
It would probably be good to give a courtesy heads up to Sean as the chair of rules and resolutions, since they're the one that gave us the resolution last time.
Okay.
But however, I will throw this out. I'm available on the 17th. If we just want to have a quick WebEx meeting,
We
it
could
might go
talk
a little
about
more
office
smoothly.
space. Right, I was
Yeah.
thinking we could meet on the 17th. We could start talking about office space
Right.
as well.
I don't have a problem with that.
Does anyone else?
I think I'd rather do it this
I'm
way
looking.
than.
On Monday the 17th, I'm open from 9 to 10 a.m.
All right.
Okay,
Otherwise, I'm booked solid the whole day.
9
okay.
a.m.
I got audit 9 to 11.
I'm teaching during that time.
Or I could do
What about,
evening.
what about evening? Yeah, I was gonna say, does anyone's evening okay?
Works for me.
Make that work.
Evening should be fine.
Mr. Rick, I'm sure you would rather not do evening, but would an evening, if we kept it to about an hour, would an evening work for you?
I can make it work.
What time do we think in the evening? We want to be before dinner, after dinner? What works best for you guys?
Whatever works best for Clint, because those are well out of hours.
I'm thinking that's Pine Valley that meets that night, but
Yeah, this will be the, what is this, the third? let me
Third
see, the
Monday,
third
yeah.
Monday. So third Monday, we have Pine Valley at 6, library board at 5. That
Are
impacts
you
any-
involved in the Pine Valley meeting, Mr. Langrick?
I
I
need to
am.
get to that. I need to do, I have an outstanding performance evaluation closed session with Director Rislow that I am delinquent on doing. So that would be at 6 o'clock for me. I'm assuming that if I can, they typically do closed sessions at the end, so I don't know how much would be on the agenda. So maybe it's like a 6:30 time frame that I'll begin to be engaged on that.
All right, so, well, what about,
8 a.m.?
that's true. If we, oh no, because I think Ingrid teaches in the morning.
I'm booked then too.
Okay. 7:30?
Okay,
I don't
well,
know.
all right, so maybe we
No.
just do right before the county board meeting on the 18th,
Yeah.
and then, but let's find another date that works to have a real meeting. How about, what does people's days look like the week of the 24th of May? Like maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
I could do Thursday morning.
How about Friday afternoon?
The Friday before Memorial Day in the afternoon, not good.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a bummer, isn't it? You're right. Let's see. All right, I'll send out a doodle. I'll send out a poll. We'll find a date.
Well, everybody's on right now. Why don't we find a date? I mean, I know what my
Okay.
schedule
Yeah.
is like. So.
How about
So-
Monday? Anybody for Monday?
Well, the 24th, I'm gone. I'll be back on
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay.
I'm back
How about
on-
Tuesday? What time works for people on Tuesday?
I can do any time after 9:30, 10 o'clock.
I'm booked all
Works for
morning.
me.
I can do any time after 1.
After, would 1
1
o'clock
o'clock?
on the
To 1
25th?
p.m.
1 p.m. works?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the 25th, right?
Yeah, Mr. Langrick, does that work for you?
Yes, it does, Madam Chair.
Okay, so
Thanks.
1 p.m. on May 25th?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
But we're also doing a special meeting before the board meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, we will be meeting at a time to be determined before on the 7th. Is it the 17th?
That will have to be agendaed and
Yep.
everything. So,
Um,
okay.
Tracking May 18th, Tuesday, that'll be the third Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
And then looking if we can do it at 6:30, very quickly, we'll call the meeting to order. I don't think I'll probably even have it established as like a WebEx. It'll just be an in-person meeting at the Phoenix
Yeah.
Center prior to.
Perfect.
That works.
Okay. All right, so we are scheduled for our next meeting, the 18th at 6:30, and then the meeting after that will be May 25th at 1.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion by Butler, second by Glassbrenner.
Frankel second.
All those in favor
Oh.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.